Okay. I have 6 o'clock. Everyone would get a seat, and like to call our meeting to order. Appreciate everyone coming out tonight. We've got quite a few things to try to decide and to cover tonight. We wanted to allot plenty of time. I think surely we'll have plenty of time to get into the things that we need to take care of. I think just to give a little bit of a rundown, we did not publicize particular items so that we would be only limited to those items. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the budget and finalize the budget, hopefully, for next year. So everything that we'll be talking about tonight will pertain to the budget for next year. But it is a various set of topics, I guess you'd say. The things that we're going to need to do tonight, first of all, is to do a final decision or make a final decision on the step raises that to enact them, and a COLA or cost of living or cost of labor adjustment to them, and what that percentage will be. Several of the budgets that we have presented tonight give more than one option. They were approved at various rates, subject to what the commission decides to do on that issue. So I'd like for us to decide that first, and then having done that, that will let these other things more or less, I guess you'd say, fall into place. If you think that's the wrong order, if we need to discuss each one of those and all the various options, we can. I just think it'd be, have already done that in previous meetings. So I guess without objections, that's kind of the way we'll try to start tonight. Also, we still need, I believe, some information that Mr. Potts has not provided us yet. Don't think that's going to keep us from doing what we need to do tonight, but it possibly could. We do have amended budget to look at from our budget amendment for schools, and we have 2 budget proposals from the water department that reflect the changes that we asked them to incorporate into their budget. So they're kind of at the rear of your packet if you haven't found those yet. We've had a emergency situation come up with that we would like to try to deal with, at least get some direction on tonight as well. That hopefully we'll have time to deal with that. If we can't, we can certainly take that up at another date. It does pertain to the budget, so it would be in order to talk about it tonight and hopefully come to some decision. So all of that being said, I guess, Mayor, I think you and Amy probably work more with these figures and numbers than I have, and we'd certainly like for you to kind of get us started, tell us where we're at, and what your recommendations are. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Lisa.
Well, what you've been presented across all the different funds shows 3 options that have been kind of discussed here at the budget committee. Option 1 is just going with the original wage study recommendation for each position. Option 2 is the study plus the step up for each employee plus a 2.5% COLA. And the third option is the study plus a step up plus a 5% COLA. Really, that's the big difference between this budgets and other budgets. Like I said, we've covered this for several meetings. Outside of those, I don't think there's really other changes. I think just the big issue has been is these employee pay, what we're going to do with our employees. As you know, as we went through it, there were no major expenditures or projects or anything like that in this current budget proposal. So we've covered it several times, and really it's just down, I think, right at this point to labor. So if you want to go over anything further than that, but I think right now just pinpoint the labor cost, that's the big issue that we need to resolve.
I feel the question will come up as far as which of these three are doable without any increase in our tax rate. Can you elaborate on the three options and how they would affect that?
Well, I believe option one and option two is what we originally proposed, and we did not have a tax increase for that. Option one would be less than that amount, so you wouldn't need a tax increase for option one or two. Option three, I may have to ask Amy to help me on that one. I'm not really sure. You may want to look at tax increase if you're doing option three. I can't remember the exact difference between 2 and 3. I think it was maybe like $100,000 or so. Let's see if I got that number somewhere.
Option three would be approximately 120,000, just north of 100,000, if I remember correctly, and I think that's where we were with that one, which would equate to a few pennies on the new tax rate, which is substantially lower than the old tax rate, but would be a tax increase any way you rack it and stack it. Mr. Harsh?
Move to approve option 2 for the proposed budget.
Do have a motion to approve option 2 at 2.5 COLA. Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Burton?
I'll second that, sir.
Have a second by Mr. Burton. We do have a motion to approve option 2 by Mr. Harsh and a second by Mr. Burton. Now we'll take questions. Mr. Burton, you're recognized.
I received an email from, I guess, Amy on Friday. Option 2 says 1 step if employed more than 1 year plus a 2.5. Is that the option Mr. Harsh is going with? That's the one that he's going with? Okay.
That was the way this was presented.
Okay, I didn't know if he just took it off the packet that we received tonight or he was reading it off the email that we received from Amy.
That was
I'm sorry?
Should be the same information.
Okay,
same information, same dollar amount.
okay, all right, same dollar amount, correct? Okay. Because that 1 year makes a big difference.
That's the way this was based.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Gully, you're recognized.
Just one on this case. So we believe at this point we can, without a tax increase, without a penny change to our tax rate, we believe we can make this budget fit. In the 4 years I've been on this commission, how tight is this budget? And I say that only because I haven't been on this commission in many times when we haven't had to come back and do quite a few budget amendments and bring more dollars in. So how tight is this budget with that piece is what I would ask at this point. If we're at a point where we believe that additional $100,000 is going to cost us a tax increase, are we that tight that if we come back with a budget amendment, we're going to have a trouble here?
As in tight, do you mean what would our anticipated fund balance be for this budget versus last budget? Or, I mean, is that
Sorry, there we go. So as we start looking at this piece, $445,000 is what we're talking about right here. It's roughly what it's increased this budget over last year's budget, $445,000. If I read our fund balance correctly, our fund balance has been decreasing year over year. So it appears we haven't had no excess as I've looked at it. Maybe I've missed something in there, but it's decreased year over year that I've looked back through my budgets. $445,590 is what we're talking about right now. So if we're at that tight a spot, are we still talking about a tax increase? I know we don't have to do it to balance this budget. Don't hear what I'm saying. It's what we've just been told. But if in the past we've been having to deplete our fund balance along the way, where is our fund balance going to sit right now projected at this piece?
Well, the one thing that you have to bear in mind with these figures that we are understating revenues. And we typically finish the year out with much more than what the projected fund balance is. And I think we have in the last few years anyway. I can't answer the question whether it's enough or it's too much, or we just know that that's the situation, that based on the figures we have, what has been previously approved as far as the other expenditures in the department, that adopting this pay scale and that percentage should not result in extra pennies having to be added to the tax rate. Now, we have things that come up all the time that affect our fund balance. We know that. We're going to have one to discuss later, I'm afraid. But that's why we have it, is for those emergency type situations. Now, we are mandated to have a certain amount, and I think we're far above that, is my understanding. Is that accurate, Mayor? Can you chime in?
Yes, sir. I believe, and Amy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have to have, is it 3 months of operating expenditures in the fund balance, and we are well above that. Yeah, so I can't tell you the exact number, but we're well above that required, that amount.
Yes.
As you brought up another statement there that I guess I've got that one somewhat answered. Sounds like we're well above that we can make it work and not be that tight. But my next question comes off of the one statement you just made in terms of if we adopt this pay scale, which in that we're talking about this step plan. The 2.5% that we're putting on this step plan, is that 2.5% that Mr. Harsh and Commissioner Harsh here and sorry, just Mr. Burton have stated and have put in their motion, is that 2.5% going to increase all of those steps in the original plan we were given by 2.5%?
I would believe it would.
Yeah, as it was
I can check.
presented, when you do a cost of living adjustment, that becomes that new rate. So yes, as Mr. Thompson presented, if you do a cost of living adjustment, then that moves those numbers up on the pay scale by that 2.5%, if that's what you're doing.
I appreciate, that's what I expected was what the answer was going to be to that piece. And the only reason I asked that is if we're looking at this pay scale, why are we looking at a cost of living adjustment instead of just an additional step increase for all of our employees and keeping our step plan that we're looking at putting into place as a whole?
Because the step plan is where they would be located, had to do with their longevity, job description, all those things. If you're jumping it without taking that into consideration, then you're not, in at least my understanding, in keeping with what it was based on. That's where they were at 5 years or 3 years, not 7 years, you know. And if you just increase it a step, you've made everybody leapfrog from 5 year to 6 year. Now, yes, the dollars, you know, are reflective of that, but as far as the actual step itself or where they would be, it wouldn't. Yes, sir.
If I read it correctly, each step is designed to be a roughly 2.35% raise. So therefore, it's pretty much in line with what we're looking at, the 2.5% raise. And I do see what you're saying is it's designed as a longevity piece. However, it's still a 2.35% raise is roughly what, if I'm reading the step plan correctly, is designed per step.
That was the initial, and it will be written where that it can be adjusted every fiscal year, subject to funds available. Next year, it might not be 2.35 between steps. It could be 5%. It could be 1%. It could be 0%. But that's what it was designed with that in mind. And we know that that was because that's what inflation had been averaging for the last 4 or 5 years. You had to have some number to base it on. And that was the number that was used, and that was why it was used. But it can be adjusted. I mean, you could do the very same thing, what you're saying, and say that we're going to keep everybody at the current step and raise it 5%. I mean, you're accomplishing the same thing. So in effect, that's what you're, well, almost the same thing. There is a difference between 2.35 and 2.5. I realize that, but I'm saying it roughly the same thing, and roughly in effect, that's what it's going to be accomplishing by going that way. But in years to come, the commissions would be deciding how much that step increase will be that would be built into the budget prior to the budget being built. And that's what we attempted to do this year. That's why we based it on 2.5. And we asked, the budget committee asked to be presented figures of 2.5, 5, and 7.5. And so that's kind of, did that answer your question? Is that, did I answer that accurately, Mayor?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Amy, do you have anything to add to that? Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did. And it is roughly the same. It's about $40,000 that we're talking about from that 0.35 to that 0.5. So it is quite a bit of money that we're talking about here in this case. Roughly 40 grand that we're talking about. Be roughly $67,256 over $109,276 there in the case. I asked Miss Amy for that before just to get my mind around what that 0.25% we're talking about there, or point that we're talking about here in this case, 0.15%, I guess technically that we're talking about here in this case. So it's about $40,000 that we're discussing here in that case. And I know it's a bit, but listen, when I look at this budget, we're not talking about we're not already giving. The step increase, the step plan itself, the moving to the base step plan puts in $268,000 more dollars into our budget over last year. So it's not that we're not giving a raise already. That's the original option one, puts $268,000 more dollars. So we're not giving nothing here. Let's make sure we understand that up front. We are definitely looking at one of those options, and I'm fine with that piece. But what we've got presented in front of us, and the 2.5% that we're talking about here in this case, is an additional on top of that step. What do we see? $109,000. That's what we're talking about for 2.5%. If I'm reading that correctly from what Miss Amy gave me earlier today, I requested these numbers from her. I guess Mondays when I requested them, and I got them about 4 o'clock today, 4:30 or so today is when I received those. So I realize we're talking what seems like small amounts, but $40,000 is a position that we've added, or a full-time position as we're talking about here in this county. So it's time to start just looking at the pieces, not saying our employees don't deserve the money, but we're not talking about nothing here already.
Anyone else like to speak to this? Any other questions on this? Any questions? We do have a motion on the floor to approve this with 2.5 COLA and the original, I guess you'd say, step system. What do we call it? What's the term we use? Pay scale. That's right. That's what I was trying to come up with. And it was motion by Mr. Harsh and a second by Mr. Burton. Seeing no further questions, let's vote on this, please. I'm sorry.
Question. So how much is that an increase for most employees? What percentage?
How much for most employees?
Yeah, like what it would be a percentage increase?
It's all over the board, but the minimum would be this, at least roughly 5%.
Minimum would be 5%.
Roughly, yes. Any other questions? Okay. That's what we seem to think. That's what we seem to think. All right. Can we do this electronic? You want us to do it by roll call, hands? How's the best way to keep up with this? Let's just do electronic on this. All in favor of this motion to approve this? Pay option 2, the study plus the step plus the 2.5% COLA. Just log it in when we can. All votes in. Anyone like to change their vote before we record the vote? Please record the vote. What do we have?
6 yes, 5 no.
6 yes, 5 no. We will proceed with that. We will present this to the full body. It's not decided tonight. It still has to go to the full body. But this will be the recommendations of Budget and Finance on this issue. With that being done, I'd like for us to go into these other budgets. If we want to tackle Water Department, the figures that they had presented to us initially, they went back and revised their budget. They did away with bonuses. They changed their overall cost of labor to reflect a 2.5 or a 5. What they had originally given us was 5. So we can accept their budget at 2.5%, be in line with what we're doing with the other county departments. And that has already been pre-approved by the Water Department to do that. Are there any questions on that or on their budget particularly? It's toward the back, I believe it's statement K, if you're having trouble finding it. Mayor, do you have anything to add to that?
No, sir, it's just like you said, they're presented 2 options, and to go along with the county, if you chose one of the options, and you've chosen the study step and 2.5% COLA, so that would be the budget, that would be the Water Department's presentation then.
So unless there's specific questions on that, again, entertain a motion to approve their 2.5 budget. Mr. Gregory makes a motion to approve the 2.5 Water Department budget. Do I have a second? Mr. Ferguson makes a second. Any further discussion on it? Any questions? I want everybody to understand what was changed and what we're doing. The few things that were brought up in budget, I presented to them, and they took that, and that's what they wound up doing. Mr. Burton.
Again, going back to Amy's email, obviously that would be option 2, 1 step employed plus a 2.5% COLA for employed over 1 year.
Yes, sir. I believe that's correct.
That's
That's
we're
what
at.
we based it on. That's what all the numbers are based on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we do have a motion to approve the Water Department's 2.5% budget. Motion was by Mr. Gregory and a second by Mr. Ferguson. We ready to vote? Please record your vote. All votes in. Anyone wish to change their vote, please let us know the vote. We have 8 yes, 3 no. It is approved. we'll proceed with that as a recommendation from Budget and Finance for the Water Department budget. Yes, Mayor, next, take up the schools.
Really, there's no real change in it. Dr. Satterfield is here. I believe with the discussions we're going forward is the resolution taking 115,000 from what was remaining in the high school. I was going to use that for the parking lot. And I believe Dr. Satterfield, if you can come to the microphone, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in my discussions with him, I've expressed to him that I think the budget that was approved by Budget and Finance on May 10th, with that parking lot issue addressed, I think that would be the budget that if the school board would have passed that, I don't think the county commission would have an issue with that. That's our discussions, and I don't speak for the school side. That'd be Dr. Satterfield, but I think hopefully we will have those issues resolved.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, the mayor and I have spoken, and the only thing, and he has a resolution drawn up that's been presented to the Tennessee Department of Ed, and they have looked over that, and they have approved, if the commission would approve, that the $115,000 would be a one-time non-reoccurring revenue. It would not count toward your maintenance of effort. And with that revenue source, then we can make everything in our budget work, the raise, the salary adjustments, the additional teacher to the middle school. And then this would give us time, because our board meeting is next week, and we can estimate that revenue is coming, and we could put that in the budget, get that approved by the board next Thursday, the 16th, and could have it in your email box the next morning. Chairman Jewell.
Thank you, Dr. Satterfield.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Does everyone understand what we're talking about on the 115,000? I think we've covered it, but I'd like to cover it again just for someone that's listening that hasn't been in. There were funds left over from the wheel tax that was devoted to go to schools. And we had said, we'd had a previous resolution that any monies that were left would go toward the capital project of the roof on the middle school. So what we're talking about doing is taking $115,000 of that, I hate to use the term leftover money, but leftover money, since that money was appropriated by the public to go to the high school to use for this purpose. And then that lets everything else within their original budget fall in place. So you will have a budget amendment to that scope to change the wording of that original ordinance or resolution, resolution, to direct 115,000 of it to their paving project. And it also has the wording in there, and it does have to be approved and signed off, by everyone, obviously, so there's no misunderstanding on it. Mr. Ford. And your motion to approve is to approve what?
115,000, the amendment he's going to bring to us.
To approve the $115,000 resolution change,
Right.
as well as the budget that was originally presented.
Yes.
Okay. Will that work?
I believe is the resolutions coming to the regular Budget and Finance Committee meeting, so you can address that there. And as far as the other budget, you did approve a budget on May 10th. It's just the school did another budget after that, and again, I think if it works out like we discussed, they're going to vote on it again at this next board meeting, and it'll be adopting what was approved by this board or this body on May 10th, and that should put everybody in line with the resolution. So I think it's probably better to be addressed.
Yeah, I don't think we've already approved the first budget, and we're going to take up this budget amendment in the regular budget meeting. But as long as everybody understands that that's what we're doing and it's all predicated on that happening, that's what we want to present for final approval at full commission meeting. So we've really already voted on that original one. And this 115 will just make it work for schools. So I don't think there's any necessity to vote on it again. And we certainly need to take up that resolution at the regular time, not tonight. So I'm going to have to say, I believe that motion is not in order. It's not needed. It's not necessary. Are you comfortable with that? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on this? Dr. Satterfield, do you want to say something else?
Can you hear? Yeah, just to be clear, that we will bring you a third budget, which will be dated June 16, which will reflect the 115,000 revenue. And then all the other things that you had in the May 10th budget. So you will get a third budget, and we feel like we can do that, and that's not an issue because we met the May 1st deadline, and then we can make other budget proposals through the budget process. So you would have a board approved June 16 budget that will contain the revenue that you're talking about and also the expenditures that we've discussed as well. It's that easy is what I'm saying. It's that easy.
To make it even easier, we were taking that $115,000 out of this year's budget. And you're going to get it right away. So you can proceed right away with your, so it would not be reflected in another budget. There would be no need for a third budget because it's actually going to be in this year's budget
No,
now.
what we wanted to do is put it in the FY23. And then that way, I mean, we'll do the paving in July and we can go ahead and put the bids out. So we just need it in the new FY23 budget. Right, Angie? Yeah.
Do you not have the 200,000 allocated in this year's budget? Is it also in the 23?
It's in a federal grant.
I understand that.
And it's sitting over there and it has not been obligated yet.
Well, I don't understand why you wouldn't want it now. Why you would want it
Because
to be part of the budget when it's not going to apply to maintenance of effort or anything.
We don't need it until July 1. There's no way we can do any paving in this month. We don't have the time to do that. And we've got to work with the federal grant as well. We just need it for July 1, and then we can award the bid in July, and we'll be in good shape.
You're complicating our budget because it's in our budget now. We'll have to carry these funds over. We can't do a budget amendment now because it would be affecting next year's budget. I think we need to do the budget amendment, take those funds and get them to you. They're going to go into your account. You can carry them over and use them in July if you want to.
Okay, that'd be fine. We can carry it over.
Am I wrong on that, Amy?
Can we carry it over, Angie?
Am I confusing this? If I am, somebody straighten me out, please.
I'm going to clean that fund out this year.
Okay.
That fund will be
Well,
zeroed
Angie
out.
just said we'll take it and then we'll do a budget amendment.
Exactly. I mean,
So we'll bring you a budget amendment.
whatever y'all need to do on your
Okay.
side, that's fine. But on my side, I'm cleaning the fund out.
Okay, we'll make it work. Thank you very much.
Because
Thank you.
that money's in this budget, we need to deal with it in the existing budget,
Okay.
if we possibly can.
Okay.
And I think we have time to do that. And that's what we were trying to do is to get it to you as quickly as we could. Number one, so you would know we were going to, and number two, so you could proceed with that project, that it wouldn't hold it up in any way.
And we appreciate that. We'll appreciate that.
Okay. So you don't think that'll be an issue? So, and if we do that, then we'd have no necessity to change the other budget unless there are some things that you want to shuffle around. That's up to y'all.
Well, we've got several things in the budget. We got our salary schedule, our teacher's salary schedule came out yesterday, so we can adjust on our salaries. We've made new hires. We forgot that we've added, you heard us, we added 3 teachers at the elementary school for next year. And we got computers and short throw projectors, but we forgot to order the furniture. So we're going to have to put a little bit of that furniture in capital outlay, but we'll fix all that for you.
Okay. All right, everybody understand? So right now, the budget amendment that we'll have presented should take care of what was previously approved and what's needed by schools to go with their original request. And certainly there's always little changes, little tweaks that come along, and that's why we have budget amendments. But that should take care of their needs. It's my understanding. So having that said, Amy, does that get everything that we need now to put a final budget together to present to the commission?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay, that should take care of everything that has not been talked about or was yet to be decided. Take care of the school's needs, the parking lot paving and everything else. Ms. Jones, you're recognized.
I just want to say that with what we discussed tonight, some employees said would get a minimal raise of 5%. And I want everyone just to know that as currently the inflation rate is 8.2% with a new rate coming out tomorrow. That's just something you want to think about. I tried to get it said before we made the vote, but I wasn't recognized.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you needed to be recognized. I apologize.
That's okay. That's just something for us to think about before we do the final.
And we all, I think everyone needs to be fully aware that even doing that's probably not as much as it's needed, but that might be where we feel like we need to be at this point in time. I've sent y'all information as it came into me about some of the other localities and what they're dealing with. I know got information from Cookville that they were looking at a 12% increase, and some of our neighboring counties were looking at 20% increases. And with inflation the way it's running, who knows if that's going to be enough, so
they're going to be behind already. That's just one. I mean, just throwing it out there so everybody is aware. If they're not, I'm sure they are already.
I understand. I absolutely share those sentiments, and but that the will of this body was 2.5. It did pass, so that's what we're going to present. We can run with that at the commission level, or somebody can try to amend that up, which will really gum up the work, so to speak, but that's where we're at. Mr. Burton, you're recognized.
School Fund 141. I know we have beat this thing around. Probably 9 out of 10, 9 out of 11 of us asked this question. With this new budget proposal, 4% non-certified staff increase, is that in there?
That is up to them. The funding is there for them to do that if they so choose. That was in their original budget that we approved, yes.
So the funding is in there, and if the school board and Dr. Satterfield don't give this 4.4% non-certified staff increase, it's on them and not this county commission.
That would be my understanding.
Thank you.
I don't see that happening, but we have one other issue that's come up that I'd like for us to get in, and we'll take a little bit of a break before we go into urban services. Mayor, you want to tell us what's going on with this trash truck issue, please, sir?
Yes, sir. We had a gray trash truck we had bought several years ago. It was being serviced in Nashville. They were out taking it for a test drive afterward, and it caught fire. And the insurance company looked at it and they totaled the vehicle. We got an insurance payment of $60,000. Mr. Salee has been working with a dealership and going through our one of our purchasing cooperatives, we got a price for a new vehicle probably about 2 or 3 hours ago. And the price is $360,073.47. Whether or not we will get that vehicle depends on if we are the first to submit a PO. So several local governments are all vying for new vehicles. We're all experiencing the same problem. You can't find anything new, used, and the ones you find used are not worth having. And so the difference between the used and the new is not that much. Mr. Slee is requesting a new one. Given that there is a time crunch on this, I wanted this board's opinion. Is this something you think we need to put in next year's budget, or do we need to look at a budget amendment to try to give us 4 days earlier to submit a PO to get the vehicle?
Everyone understand that we're in a situation that we're going to have to buy a trash truck. I don't know how much you follow the news, but I think one of the reasons trash piled up in Nashville was that they had a lot of trucks on order that they couldn't get in. So they are in short demand right now and very hard to get. I think that we have funds, and I'll let Amy and the mayor answer this. I think we have the funds in the 114, is it 114? 116 budget currently that would cover this expenditure. It will pretty much exhaust that. Might mean that we have to put a slight amount of money in there as a budget cleanup amendment, but we think the money is there because they have run substantially over in that to be able to, that's one reason we've tried to keep that fund balance, I guess you'd say, in that up in case we did have an emergency situation along this line. So, Amy, do you think there is enough money to cover that in our current budget in that category? Okay. Mayor, is that your recommendation?
Yes, sir. If you look at the estimated fund balance at the end of this fiscal year that Amy gave us, she's projected to be $1,077,024. If you take off the cost of the trash truck, that would leave you a fund balance of $716,950.53 to end this current fiscal year.
I don't want to see us, I don't think, try to finance this and go through the, when we have the money that we can pay for it. Also the timeline in trying to do that. I know in times past, that's what we've had to do, but I don't think we're in a situation we have to do that this time. Mr. Gully?
Just one question. Is this our door-to-door truck?
No, it's a front loader. The door-to-door truck is still in service.
Okay, the only reason I asked that question is how often are we utilizing this front loader truck?
We're using it every day, I believe. Yeah, because I was actually at the convenience center earlier today. We're running those front loaders every day and we are seeing more and more trash. So it's getting to be, we're having to, in the future, very near future, we're looking to having to either increase routes or something like that. So we run it consistently every day.
For lack of a better description, it's the dumpster truck.
Yeah, I get what you're saying in this case. I'm just making sure. I know the door-to-door was not running, Mr. Sleep presented to us, wasn't running as often. So I want to make sure we knew how often this was being utilized. So it's daily, every day.
Yeah, this is the one, we actually have customers outside the county that are businesses and everything that go get their dumpsters through us. This is the vehicle that services those. So it runs countywide.
Mr. Sally, you recognize.
This is a truck that services every business in town. It does the convenience center. It does the schools. It does anytime you see a dumpster around any of the businesses or any place in Trousdale County, this is the truck that does it. It runs from 5 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon, almost every day. It runs all day, every day. So this is a truck that we really need to try to get. The one we've got now was purchased in 2005. It's we're going to try to push it as long as we can. The outlook on this one, if we give them a PO as soon as possible, end of the month, we're looking at March. Everybody else is telling me 2 years before we can get another truck. They'll even entertain me. I can't even get them to give me an idea other than a truck that we really don't need. It's to put it this way, he gave you the price for this one. There's a 2020 in Ohio right now, and they want $399,000 for it. So there are a lot of them that are overrated that the people are going to try to sell us that we don't need. This is not a basic truck, but it's not the top of the line. It's just not, what the county needs. We try to look around and get exactly what we're looking for. We don't need the fancy stuff. So that's where we're at.
Mr. Harsh?
For informational purposes, or do you need action from us?
Right now, I'm wanting your direction on this. Speaking to Mr. Sleet, I would prefer to have that 4 days to try to get our PO in first to get this vehicle. So I'd rather do it as a budget amendment in this year and get those 4 days, because if we get it approved at the county commission meeting, the next day we'll cut this PO and get it to the company so we can try to be first in line. So I was just wanting to know if you would prefer to do it as a budget amendment in this current fiscal year, or if you wanted to wait till next fiscal year. I highly recommend we do it as a budget amendment to try to get first in line on this vehicle.
All right, let's do that then.
Mr. Harsh, you're making a motion to do a budget amendment on it?
Yeah.
For this year.
Yes.
And Mr. Gully gets a second. Now, Mr. Burton,
Here. The people working on this thing, what caught on fire? Engine, hydraulics, what?
The insurance company didn't send a fire investigator out. I talked to the people that were servicing the truck and Mac, and most people send out a fire investigator. Most of them send out 2 fire investigators. It was down for a service on the transmission. It had been acting up, so we sent it down there to get it repaired. It wasn't anything big. It had sheared a couple of bolts on the torque converter. Some of you may know what that is, but they just replaced the bolts, put a new flex plate in it. And we're test driving the truck. They said the truck went into regen mode, which causes everything to get about 3 times hotter than it normally operates. And some garbage caught on fire. The truck was washed thoroughly and cleaned before it was taken down there. We keep the truck clean. Leach eats the wiring harnesses up. It eats the seals up. It eats everything on the truck up. So we try to keep them rinsed off, if not pressure washed, soap washed weekly. And they say it was a piece of trash. It caught on fire. It burned up very little. I've got pictures of it. It burnt some wires, a couple of air lines, and some coolant lines. But this truck was purchased with a salvage title in 2013. It had been wrecked in Kansas. And we bought it with salvage title, but it was a top of the line truck. It had backup sonar. It had heated washout tanks. It had heated fuel system and brakes. It was a luxury garbage truck. And it's just something, we got a good deal on at the time. I was kind of encouraged to buy it by my predecessor and the salesman. So we bought the truck, and it did good for a little while, but we spent a fortune on that truck. I could be here all night. I could pull a stunt here.
I think we remember some of the history of that truck.
Yeah.
That truck has a history, shall we say. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Okay, so we do have a motion to go ahead and tackle that in this month with a budget amendment. I have a motion by Mr. Harsh and a second by Mr. Gully. Any further discussion on it? We'll prepare this for our regular meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thought that's the way it'd be. Okay. Got that. Anything else that we needed to cover tonight with the budget, Mayor, Amy, Mayor?
No, sir, I believe that's it.
I think we have the numbers. We can put it together to present to the body. Anyone else? Commissioners, do you have anything that you'd like to say tonight? Any questions? Public comments? Anyone in the public like to speak on any issue? I'm sorry, Bubba. Mr. Gregory.
I just like to say the insurance committee met. I think we got a good proposal. It might be a benefit to the employees, but their meeting is June the 15th. Do y'all know about the meeting? 5:15. I hope all y'all show up. And I think it's a good proposal, and bring it back to the insurance committee. But I think it looked like a pretty good proposal.
What we have, our insurance broker has a proposal for an improved insurance plan for the county employees. And before we voted on doing it, we wanted to introduce it to the employees and get your opinions and whether you liked it, whether you thought it would be of benefit to you. So those meetings are scheduled for the 15th. That's a Wednesday at 5 o'clock and 6:15. If you can't make the one at 5, you got a second shot at it. Plus, we're going to tape them so that you'll be able to go back and look at them. But you will have the opportunity to ask questions about what this is going to do. It's a different approach, but it should give you better insurance benefits and cost you less money out of pocket. And that's that's the reason that we're looking at trying to go that direction. It is with Blue Cross Blue Shield. It is not some unknown company. So I think, but we did not vote to do it. We voted to present it to the employees and get their feedback before we made a final vote on it. Seeing nothing else, entertain a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry. Have a motion to adjourn and a second by Mr. Gully. All in favor? Bye. Thank you, guys, girls.